Hello, and welcome to my reactions to The Brutalist, starring Adrian Brody and Guy Pearce. I am giving you my thoughts from a 26-foot U-Haul truck, because why not? I have to be here, so I may as well film something about The Brutalist before the Academy Awards tomorrow. And I'll just cut to the chase and say that for me, it was a pretty good movie. That doesn't really do it justice, though, because I think that it's not that it's a middling movie, it's that it excels in certain things and then was, for me, a little bit lacking in other things. I was so stoked to see this movie because I am interested in architecture. I thought that it would be visually really compelling, based on the previews that I had seen and hearing about it and hearing some buzz about it from some of the podcasts I listened to. So I was really excited to see it. And I will say that in some ways, first of all, I went into it thinking that it was based on a true story. Much like when I went in to see the movie Tar, it is not. Neither one of them is based on a true story. And I actually was a little less interested in it after that. I don't know why, but for some reason I thought it was a true story, and it's not. Well, okay, so that's fine. So it's not a true story. But the first 2 hours of the movie were sort of a family story, an immigrant story, a post-World War II assimilation story of a Jewish man, a Jewish Hungarian architect, who was an accomplished architect in the Brutalist style in Hungary. And I've seen immigrant stories before, but it was compellingly done. It was interesting. There were a lot of beautiful shots, and I found Adrian Brody really compelling. I'm not someone who follows his career particularly closely. I've seen other movies he was in, like Wes Anderson movies, that his presence wasn't enough to keep me engaged, but it more or less was in this movie. I enjoyed watching him throughout the movie, and I liked the family stuff. I liked, him dealing with his family that was already somewhat assimilated in America. I liked the exploration of Pennsylvania as a sort of analogy and symbol of America as a whole, as a state that really includes a little bit of what comprises America as a force, as a country, as an ideal. And so I thought that was all really good and really interesting. There were some absolutely gorgeous shots. I wasn't disappointed visually. I will say that, because there were some beautiful sweeping shots of cranes and just wide angles. The train, I won't go too much into the train scene, but that was gorgeous to watch too. The quarry, and where they were getting the Italian marble, I think it was, in Italy. There were some things that it was beautiful to watch, and I loved just wandering around in those scenes and the technical, because I don't know enough about the technical aspects to explain what it was that was visually so compelling about them. But I'm also someone who has, throughout my life, been drawn visually to landscapes of industry and landscapes of industrial areas, both past and present, and how they affect the eye and how they affect the human relationship to the land that they occupy. And that's also, and I'm also someone who likes architecture, and I have studied it a bit as well. So there were aspects of it that I thought were really interesting. I would have liked to have seen more of the Brutalist architecture, to be honest with you. I thought that, there were some shots of it, but not as much as I would have liked. But anyway, the library scene at the beginning, that was very good, very effective, when they kind of had the reveal of how the architect had put everything together, and the reveal to Guy Pearce's character about how innovative it was and what it would look like. So there were elements of it that I liked a lot. And like I said, the first half I thought was quite good. But I did think it went off the rails in the second half. And I mean that in terms of the story. So you can have beautiful performances, you can have beautiful scenes, you can have an amazing score. The score was very loud, but I liked it. I thought it was effective. But if the story doesn't hold up, then that's a major problem for me. And some of my friends who've known me a long time might call me out on the fact that sometimes I don't bring the same energy to movies that I really like for whatever other reason in terms of plot and story and timing. So, for example, Nashville, Robert Altman's Nashville, is my favorite movie of all time. And that movie has very little in the way of plot. And it's still my favorite movie. So there's nothing wrong with a hangout movie where you're getting to know all of the characters. And, Dazed and Confused is very similarly, I enjoy Dazed and Confused a lot. There's not a lot of plot. But the thing is, this movie did have a plot. And then, in my opinion, the plot just didn't hold up. I don't know. And now I'm going to get into spoiler territory. So, I don't know about the rape scene. I'll just say it. I don't know if it worked for me or not. I remember when it happened thinking, oh, are they going to literalize this theme that's been throughout the whole movie? And the answer is yes, they are. And yes, they did. They literalized it. I was mixed on that. I didn't necessarily think, they didn't lose me there, although I was kind of on notice there. But they didn't lose me there. But where they did lose me was Felicity Jones confronting Guy Pearce at the dinner party and then calling him a rapist. That did not seem like something that a woman at that time would do. I'm not sure that her husband even would have told her about it. And then the fact that she even used that word, I could be wrong, Maybe it is a term that people used at the time in that context, but it's hard for me to imagine that it would have gone down like that. And then, of course, you can say, well, people don't make movies about the way things usually went down. People make movies about the exceptional or the person who didn't live according to society's standards. But for whatever reason, I just didn't think that scene and then Guy Pearce's disappearance, it didn't feel really believable to me. And I don't know what I was expecting to happen, but it didn't quote unquote work for me. I am not a paid critic, so I don't think I'm going to bother to do the work of thinking through why it did or did not work for me, whatever that means, but it didn't work for me. And then you get to the very end of the movie and there's some reveal. And I do want to watch this movie again to see if I missed something, but I don't necessarily think the reveal was worth all of the time that we put into it. I mean, it wasn't like the big payoff that I think that we were expecting, or that I was expecting anyway. So yeah. And a lot of weird stuff happened there, especially in the third act. So if you wanted to explore these themes, if you wanted to explore themes of anti-Semitism and post-World War II assimilationism, if you wanted to explore industrialism and you wanted to explore the exploitation of, well, a lot of different people really, but exploitation of artists, exploitation of immigrants, exploitation of Jewish people, exploitation of less wealthy people, if you wanted to explore the American dream, and what people have to sacrifice in order to achieve it, I think that the first 2 hours, I don't know what I would have done with it. I don't know where I would have gone with it, but I think something else slightly more effective could have been done with the story. Because without it, all the other beautiful elements are like, it's hard for me to walk away from a movie and say like, well, the story was not good, but everything else was great. I mean, for me, that's kind of the whole point of the movie. Unless we're talking about Nashville, in which case I maintain the right to experience Nashville however I want to and differently. So, and that goes for most Robert Altman movies in general. So, yeah. That is my ramble on The Brutalist, and I'll be really curious to see how it goes tomorrow at the Oscars. And once again, this has been my unsolicited opinion.